Every one of those things I can tell you about. I think maybe you found yourself somewhere in that list as well, perhaps. I think the psalmist did. The psalmist had his list, but he didn't share that list with us. He shared the reverse list with us. Well, what am I saying? He says, my hope is from Him. He alone is my rock. He's my salvation. He's my fortress. He's my deliverance, my honor, my mighty rock, my refuge. The psalmist had gone through these things that we go through. And he had come out on the other side and found that waiting upon God silently brought him the reverse list of this. It's like a black hole where it sucks it all in and something happens in the transformation and shoots it out. It built all of this faith within him. Have you seen the movie Slumdog Millionaire? You heard about it? It's the movie now that is all kinds of awards. It's made in the country of India. By unknown actors and actresses. It's the story of a young man who goes on the show, the equivalent show in India of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? And we're familiar with that one. Well, he goes on and goes through the rounds. And each time he goes higher, of course the easy questions everybody knows. But then it gets harder as the money in the pot grows. And this slumdog from India, because that's the way he grew up. That's what he was known as a slum dog. This slum dog was answering all the hard questions as well. How? How was he doing it? That was the question. They suspected that somehow he was cheating. He was cheating. But then, behind each question, then comes on the scenes of his life that takes us back through his life, his growing up, the incredible tragedies and hardships and rejections and being an outcast and survival, just sheer survival in that environment. How he did it. And for some reason, there was a story for each question that happened to be that question that somehow that story touched on his life and he knew the answers. The answers were because he had lived through a life experience. And I think that's the way it is with us here. How did the psalmist know that God was a rock? How did the psalmist know that God was a refuge? How did the psalmist know that God would deliver him? How did the psalmist know that he was safe and secure and that God was able to provide everything for him? Because the psalmist had somehow lived through the experience. And then knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that it was not because he was smart. It was not because he was so intelligent, and certainly I'm standing before you today not because I'm smart enough to figure out all of the things that are on my list, my way through all of that. I didn't have many of the answers, probably any of them. But God had those answers. And somehow by waiting and depending upon God, there was a way through. So that I can stand before you today and say, my rock. And I will bet you, if you look at your list very carefully, your own personal list, and if we told the stories of the tragedies, the hardships, and all of the problems that are represented here in all of our lives, that you would say with the psalmist, yes, God is my rock. God was my refuge. God delivered me from that. There was no way I could get through that by myself. God was there for me. And God alone was able to do what I was unable to do. Now the psalmist goes on to say we may trust in other things, we may want other things, but nothing is adequate except God. I can tell you now that I'm in this position again. I've got one more to add to my list, and I went over to Wilson yesterday at the regional office. I have accepted a responsibility in the region. You know, we're having a capital campaign. Those of you who are at the regional assembly, you'll remember that we're having a capital campaign. And our regional minister called me up and said, I want you to be the chair of the lead and major gifts of the capital campaign. And I said, well, John, I'm going to need to pray about this. And so I did, and it had all the feelings of a call to it. Every time I have gone in ministry and been called from one place to another, there's somehow I had this knowledge that this is what God wanted me to do. And so that came over me again, and so I told him yes. And just like every time I accepted a call to ministry somewhere, about a month or two or three or a year later, I looked and said, oh my God, what have you done? You crazy man. And that's where I am. When they told me what the goal of this capital campaign was, $2.7 million. Now, I can tell you, I've been down at Minnesota, and my list expanded. And I had to go over there yesterday and say to them, I've needed a big dose of faith. A big dose of faith. So I went to the little book, there's little leaves of gold, or leaves of silver or something. And it had a section in there on faith. There must have been 100 things on faith. And I kept reading and I kept reading. The more I read, the more I knew that this was another time that God would somehow see us through. I didn't know the answer to that. I don't know how this is going to happen. I do know that God will be in the journey. And I'm content to walk in that journey now. I believe in what we're trying to do. But I don't know how God is going to do it. But I'm willing to let God try through me. That's all He can ask. So that's what I'm trusting on. For God alone, my soul waits in silence. Whatever you're facing, friends, brothers and sisters, I don't know what your challenge is today, but wait for God alone. Amen.